Okay. Okay, thank you for the brief introduction. And yes, my name is Stefano Alessandrini. I work at Area Science Park in Trieste. And I'm here to present you the project SIMPLA, which stands for Sustainable Integrated Multi-Sector Planning. Multi-sector planning because we are talking about SEAP and SAMP, which are two different plans promoted by European Commission, and which usually are approached separately by the municipalities. And this is a problem because you understand that the transport and mobility sector is part of sustainable energy action plan, and vice versa is the same. So it's important that the municipality understand how to approach in the same time two different planning procedures, or to update one of the two plans if one of the two plans already exists, or to develop the two plans in a parallel way, but taking into account the point of contacts and the influences within each other. So I will start just with something that you probably know, but we're talking about SEAP and SECAP, which is the new version of SEAP, taking into account also the adaptation to climate change. This is a new initiative of the Covenant of Mayors Office that wasn't present in the first version of the Covenant of Mayors. Covenant of Mayors Office provided a guideline to develop the Sustainable Energy Action Plan. And the main objective of the plan is the CO2 emission reduction. This is what the municipalities understand at the first sight, and also at the second and the third. And it's not only this, obviously. It's talking about quality of life, renewable energies, and all the things that we say today. So now I have the head full of really good information, and it's difficult for me to talk only about this because I'm thinking about ethic issues, and that are the real core, the real focus of this kind of projects, which are similar in the objectives and have to carry out similar activities to change the behavior and mental attitude of people and citizens and the public authorities employ. SAMP is the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan. In this case, there is also a guideline provided by ELTIS. And the concept is a step forward, a big step forward, the classical public, the urban mobility plan, which is just taking into account usually planning about how to design roads and just infrastructure point of view. SAMP has a different purpose because it's a strategic plan designed to satisfy mobility needs of people and goods in cities for a better quality of life, ensuring accessibility, improving safety, reducing noise and pollution, enhancing attractiveness and urban environment quality. The mission of the project SIMPLA is to harmonize SEAP and SAMP. It's not so simple, but we try to say that it's simpler. Because, as I said before, these two plans usually are developed separately in different departments inside the same municipality or local authority, depends on the level, aggregation of municipalities. And so they don't speak to each other, usually. And this is a problem. We try to fill this gap, suggesting a procedure. We produced, during the first year of the project, we produced the guidelines to the harmonization process between these two plans. And the steps of the harmonization process are the initiation and update, then the planning, integrated planning, implementation. The implementation of the two plans must take into account the implementation of each other, because if I change something in the mobility infrastructure, probably I will cause, on the other side, different CO2 emissions. Or if I shift the modal transport from internal combustion engines vehicles to bicycles, in order to reduce CO2 emissions, I will probably generate something in the indicators of the SAMP. So I have always to take into account the two plans in an harmonized way. Then the monitoring step. We met several stakeholders during the first year, and we noticed that the data collection, for example, during the planning phase, in order to establish the more important actions to be carried out during the plan implementing period, data collections are separated. So there are different databases with the same data collected by more than 2 offices in the same municipalities. This is a loss of time, money, and it generates usually the impossibility to compare the sets of data, because sometimes they've got different sources, different unit measures. So I'm talking about for the Italian situation, but it's the same also in the other state partners. So let's have a look at the differences between SEAP and SAMP. Another thing that we usually noticed from the public authorities was that they considered SAMP as a chapter of a SEAP. But this is not the case, because SAMP has got many different objectives that are, for example, accessibility and improving quality of life, that SEAP doesn't ask officially to the municipality to report. Another difference is that SEAP has got a mandatory monitoring procedure every 2 years. SAMP hasn't got this mandatory monitoring procedure, and you can imagine how the story will go on after the SAMP has been written. So the issues are many, but we are not giving up. So we can try to harmonize energy and mobility planning strategies and objectives, because although many differences between them, there are still several points in common. For example, some key fields of action, or the participative approach to refer to stakeholders' involvement, or several action monitoring indicators, for example, the number of electric vehicles running in town, or others. This is just an example that you can find in the guidelines, which are available on the Simpla website. Is the example about the harmonized monitoring procedure, taking into account the year of the baseline emission inventory for SEAP and the year of initial scenario and context analysis, which is typical of a SAMP. These 2 years are often different. So from that point, the objectives are defined as a consequence of this. Suggest to the municipality to try to align the monitoring. First of all, start monitoring measures of the SAMP, which is not mandatory, and try to align these steps in order to optimize data collection procedures, people involved, and everything related to this action. This is just an example. In the guidelines, you can find all the steps well described, and suggesting a solution and the method and the methodology. So, briefly, the project is organized in 7 work packages. It involves 6 European member states. The work packages are the management, definition of Simpla International Intervention Model, the production of Simpla guidelines, and the start of an online observatory, the capacity building section, which will start in a few days, with a coaching phase, and then a training phase with a mutual learning activity. And the last work package is about communication and dissemination. Here you can find all the main characteristics of the project. For example, within the project time frame, which has a duration of 3 years, 800 public officers will be influenced, 30 new and improved policies and plans in the sense of integrated SEPs and SAMs will be produced, 2,750,000 final consumers impacted, 3.2 million euro cumulative investments, 82.6 gigawatt hour per year of energy savings, and 19.6 gigawatt hours a year of renewable energy productions, more than now. I think the presentation will be available for everyone after the conference. So, and you can find all these information on the Simpla website that I suggest you to visit. As Tomislav asked us, I prepared a couple of slides, final slides, which aim to have a look at the possible synergies and the points in common between Simpla and Foster Reg. Foster Reg is a project that fills the gap between urban planning and energy efficiency measures, activities. Simpla works on another side of the triangle, because I think the triangle, urban planning, energy planning, and mobility planning, these 3 are inside a ball that you can call quality of life, that contains social aspects and ecology aspects and everything else. So both the projects are involving public authorities. Both the project carried out activities of capacity building, and both the projects work on planning procedures at urban scale. There are some differences because Simpla aims at the harmonization of the SEAP and the SAMP, then FOSTER-REG aims at integrating energy efficiency renovation of buildings within urban regeneration strategies. We can say more that Simpla will produce the guideline, has produced the guidelines in the first version. Then there will be a second version at the end of the training year, and the third version, the final version, at the end of the coaching year. Because in each step we will collect more information, more feedback, and more real examples that will be useful to the future readers to have a simpler harmonization procedure. And FOSTER-REG has got different outputs that probably you know, because we talked about it a lot today. And but there are two projects, both funded under Horizon 2020 program, and which aims at generate impact in local authorities' capacities that are usually not very high, looking at this particular problem. Thank you. This is the contact of my boss at Area Science Park, so you can contact him. That is very we'll be very happy to talk with you all. If you want, you can have a look at the guidelines. I have it with me.